maybe we can help you out with Vovi, you know, because we played at his birthday party, yeah? Maybe we've got a word in for you, yeah?
You played at Wowie's birthday party?
Yeah, yeah.
Really? When?
Wild stuff.
Well, a couple of years ago.
A couple of years ago. Okay, they can put in a good word for the tech
Don't wanna
sector.
know what
That
happened
is,
there.
you don't want to know what happened there. Okay, actually, I don't. No, you're right. Okay, the art of execution, ladies and gentlemen. We have, Berlin finest entrepreneurs here at this side of the table. Because being an entrepreneur is not really easy. It's not like the easiest path to choose. If you're intelligent and you have a good education, there are much safer ways to earn a decent money and earn a decent living. So what can we learn of these entrepreneurs here at this table? I asked them to give like a short introduction on the product, how they came, what their path was, what challenges they did overcome. So Simon, if you first want to start, tell us a little bit about, why did you become a startup entrepreneur first? What is your motivation to be here at this very moment in time?
Wow, that's a broad question. Well, I think it's basically I wanted to become an entrepreneur because I think it's amazing to have this kind of freedom, of mental freedom and of freedom of power, and being able to do things that you want to do, and not being forced to do things, and also to be able to realize what you think is best and to realize your own vision. And I think for that it's the only way, it's the only right way to do it. And then very early I got into contact also with, when I decided to move back to Berlin, with Christoph Mehr, and have been working with him for quite some time, managing his portfolio. So I was very close with many entrepreneurs and close to the scene, and obviously the inspiration grows, and you want to do
because
something.
Christoph Mehr is a very well-known name in Berlin in the young tech startup scene. What did you do exactly for him?
Well, Christoph Mehr has this investment fund. It's not a real fund. It's basically his own portfolio of companies that he has invested in, and I basically manage his portfolio. At the very beginning, I started working at Techstar, which is the company he's heading at this moment, but then quickly shifted to manage.
What is happening, by the way, to Techstar? I don't hear a lot about it. What's happening with Techstar?
Well, Techstar started out as a B2C solution first, right? That was basically the path of Techstar, that how it was planned in the very beginning. Then it kind of shifted during the time, was simply business model shift, because it became clear there's a much more attractive space, and the more attractive space is B2B. Right now, what Techstar is basically doing is they are doing white label solutions for the big hardware manufacturers. So to be a counterpart to Amazon with a Kindle as a B2C solution is basically impossible at this point in time. But to provide all the other hardware manufacturers like Samsung, Asus, Acer with their white label solution, and still make the sales.
But it is one of the quieter companies in town. It sits under SoundCloud. And if you compare to SoundCloud, of course, there's no comparison. But isn't it a bit too quiet around Techstar?
I don't think so. It's a B2B solution. It's never that loud around B2B solutions, and also it's simply not as shiny as Techstar, of course.
Yeah.
There are no stars involved. There's no Ashton Kutcher sitting on the board of Texas.
Yeah, Aston Kutcher, of course, investing in a couple of companies in Berlin.
Yeah.
But you say, okay, I want to do this, but you're German, and for Germans, it's not very common, right, to take this huge amount of risk that you have to take as a startup entrepreneur.
Well, I'm not sure. I have a lot of friends that are also German and that very much like to take this risk. So it's definitely no reason not to take it because you're German. But maybe it's also from a background. I've been traveling around the world quite a lot, and living outside from Germany for approximately 8 years.
Do you think that helps to have this international experience? Is it then easier to?
I think it's easier to be creative, to bring thoughts together, and to think more widely. I think that definitely helps, and also in dealing with people, that's a huge asset.
Yeah.
If you have dealt with many different nationalities.
But you don't, and you guys, of course, Dominic and Fabio, you can interact. If you hear interesting stuff, and you think, okay, I want to respond to this. You don't think that there is a small component in being a German, that you're less, or that you're risk aversive more than other cultures, for example, the American culture?
Well, maybe the American culture is more is in this respect probably more less conservative, less conservative. Germans
Yes.
are more conservative in terms of remembering. So if you fail here, it's not as comfortable as if you fail in the US. There's definitely a difference, I think, and that's also a reason for many people not even to try it because they're afraid of failing.
Right.
But that's a cultural issue that might be true. Yeah. I mean, I haven't experienced that yet, but
Not in your direct
I've heard it
surroundings,
from people, and there might be something true behind that. Yeah.
Yeah, because Fabian, you've lived, of course, for a long time in the States.
Yeah, I mean, the US is the country of entrepreneurship, and it's not just a saying. It's, I think, the way people, there's two things: the way the country is structured, the history of going west. You have to basically take this land, and it's all about entrepreneurship. So the people that go there in the first place are people that leave everything behind. So by definition, you have a self-selection of people that go there to grab stuff, that leads as well to an ecosystem that is much easier and more supportive too, in terms of financing, people supporting you when you want to venture out to do something. I feel like when you sometimes tell people here, I want to do this new thing, I want to open this new space, or I want to build this company, then everybody is very good with advice of what can go wrong. Make sure this can happen, or there's a risk here and there's a risk there, and you don't get this feedback in the US. In the US, people say, that's great, this opportunity, and you can do that with us, and this can become this. And I think there is a big cultural difference between those two countries. But there's other European countries, I think, that are a bit more entrepreneurial than Germany. Think about the UK. I mean, I think the UK is more entrepreneurial too compared to us here.
Yeah, because how long have you been doing startups or running companies yourself?
I mean, I think to ask beginning, how do you become an entrepreneur? And I don't think necessarily something you choose that you want to become an entrepreneur. I think you see something, you want to do it, and you do it. And it's all about, I think, startups is about doing things and getting things done. So my first startup was in '96. I was browsing the web. Back then you were surfing the web. It was this thing, surfing.
Yeah.
That's what you did, surf. And so there was this cool site, and there was an online auction house. I wanted to buy and participate in this online auction house. It was called On Sale. And they said, well, sorry, it's only for US people. And I said, damn, I think it's a cool idea. You know what? I'm going to build an auction house myself. So with two friends, we built auktionet.de, which was the first German auction house, and we built it for 2 or 3 years. And so the reason was, we built it because we wanted to get it done. We wanted to do it. And if you see things and you want to solve them, do them, then if you're in a big corporation, it's difficult because you're not supposed to do these things, because there's processes and there's somebody who's got to do this, and you're not supposed to just jump in. So therefore, I think there's people that like to just throw themselves at stuff, and for these people, it's difficult to work in structured organizations.
Okay.
These are better and happier if they do startups, and there's the other people that like to work structurally.
Yeah. But how come that Germans in general then don't have this? Maybe this not in their DNA then, as you described.
I think Germans are very much about convention. So what I realized when I came back from the US, something that I really don't like about living here again is that everybody has an opinion on what you do. Like you cross the street and people say you're not supposed to cross the street here. You drive too fast. We say you're not supposed to drive so fast. So, and I feel like in the
judgmental.
It's horrible.
Yeah.
I
hear somebody laughing.
I didn't ask about that
they
opinion.
Recognize it.
It's like basically, I feel in the US you do what you want unless you interfere, of course, with somebody. But as long as you don't interfere with anybody, you do what you want and it's okay. And here is like people have an opinion on stuff and they make sure, do you fit in the fabric? Do you follow the rules? If you don't follow the rules, there will be somebody telling you, just so you know. And that's something I think that's pretty annoying about coming back here. And I think that's how people think, and that's what holds people back. Because being an entrepreneur often is not about following the rules. It's about doing things that often maybe is even against the rules that are set, because the rules are not about this new thing like the internet, for example. I don't want to continue, just one last thing. I started a company with co-founder Norbert Stangl, Click and Buy in 2000, an online payment company, and it was illegal what we did for the first 2 or 3 years, because online payment, the way we did it, was not covered by the legislative system. So that's a problem. Often when you want to do new things, they might be against the existing rules. So an entrepreneur just does it because he thinks he's doing right, regardless of what rules might be there in place.
Yeah. Dominic, do you have, when you think of, okay, why did I become an entrepreneur? What things did you have to overcome to, was everybody positive in your surroundings, your family, your friends? They all said, oh yeah, of course, become a startup entrepreneur, go for it.
Well, yes and no. Obviously, your family always wants to have you some safe job and something like that. On the other hand, in terms of my whole upbringing and in terms of my background back in university and back in my job, I was always sort of drawn towards entrepreneurship, and I thought of, at least to myself and to my closest circle of friends, it was always clear that I will end up being an entrepreneur. It's just I don't like to be sort of caught in a big organization. I have sort of problems with hierarchies, all that kind of stuff. So to me, it was always like, yes, I'm definitely going to be an entrepreneur. I'm definitely going to do something on my own and sort of lead the path to something. But I'm not somebody who likes to sort of get instructions and then just follow instructions, but somebody who wants to, just do things the way that he thinks it should be done.
Okay, and you have now this freedom at HelloFresh, the next big project, as how you describe it at Rock the Internet, HelloFresh. You just come in and you just decide, okay, this is what I'm going to do today, next week, next month, and I'm doing it, and nobody's telling me, nobody otherwise is telling me what to do. You have now achieved this situation?
Pretty much, I'd say. I mean, obviously, being in a network and being part of an incubator, the good thing is that you always can draw to a lot of knowledge that is within your network. It's just one call away, and you can talk to people who have experience in the different areas for years, who are among the best in their fields and who are absolutely the benchmark in what they do. So obviously, it's not saying that I do what I want to do. It's not saying that I know everything best. But that I do the things that I based on what research I did, based on what opinions I heard, based on that I do what I think fits best to the current situation, and I think being part of a larger network only facilitates that.
Yeah. And do you also feel that now in Berlin it is maybe becoming like also this international vibe where a lot of people from abroad are also coming, but mixing with like the German people, and really that you feel that the more entrepreneurial culture is rising?
Well, first of all, I mean, Berlin is by far the most international city in Germany. I mean, in most other cities, it's not like in Berlin or in Berlin Mitte, at least, that you don't even need to speak German to get around, right, Dirk?
No, not a lot. No, dankeschön.
But I think it's only positive for the whole environment if more people come in, if more internationals come in, bring their ideas and share the sort of approaches with that they try to solve things. And I definitely feel that Berlin is on the rise, that it gets more and more popular with internationals. And I do think that an inflow of good people, inflow of talent, can only be beneficial for everyone.
And what is still lacking, in your opinion, now in Berlin to become really, like, in a couple of years, matching Silicon Valley?
I think in a way it's probably the number of people that want to work in startups, and the quantity of talent available is unparalleled in Silicon Valley. And obviously there's a lot of ground to be made up in Germany or in Berlin in particular.
Yeah. Well, guys, what do you think, Simon of Monoqi? What is still lacking here in Berlin to really become like a major player in the world when it comes to web and tech startups?
Well, I think actually I would disagree a little bit to the HR point, because there are people moving to Berlin like crazy. People who are particularly interested in working for startups and working for fresh companies, who are extremely intelligent. And I get CVs from people from Silicon Valley that want to move to Berlin, that heard about Berlin. So there's definitely a huge rush. And this also from Britain, also from Scandinavia a lot. So there are a lot of interesting.
Can you pass
people.
on those CVs?
Yeah, maybe. Let me pick the ones first. But what I think is missing is a real success story. One really big company, one startup that turned to a real corporation in the web business that actually that shows the people that you can really create something real, something that has economic value for a city also. That's something that is still missing, and this kind of anchor point is definitely needed. And I think as soon as this is in the city, the rush won't stop, and then it's going to continue growing. But we need this kind of monument to keep the status and to keep this.
But
this interest.
but isn't
question is-
Zalando already this monument? I mean, this is a company that is like by far outcompeting everybody here in Berlin.
The question is such a big success gonna change the internet scene the way you see it happen in the US? In the US, you have a big angel network that actually develops out of these big successes, and these give back and invest in startups. The angels that come out of these companies are independent wealthy because they are all part of the success in terms of the incentive structure and the equity participation they have. Now, if you look back here into Berlin, I'm quite surprised actually to see that in most startups, the employees do not actually participate in the equity. So whereas in the US it's normal that every individual employee, of course, has an equity stake in the business. So when somebody like PayPal is a big success, you have 100 millionaires, you have a couple of billionaires, and you have maybe 1,000 people that are wealthy enough to write a check here and there. So, but coming back here, you don't see that. And it's not because people don't want to give it to employees.
Is this also, Simon, what you mean by this monument where a lot of people then walk the streets as millionaires because of that one monument that is really successful? Is that also what you mean?
Well, no, I didn't include that in this
Okay.
in the thought, but I still agree that this is something that should be executed more. Yeah.
Because how is the money going back into the startup scene if there's not people to write those checks? If it's concentrated only in very few people that make an exit. But the interesting thing is that it's not necessarily because people don't want to share the upside. It's, I think, and maybe that's again a German thing. If you offer, and I have that in our company, I offer people, do you want to have a bonus of 10,000 euros or do you want to have equity worth of 15,000 euros? Current valuation. People go for the 10,000 euros bonus.
You already tried this?
Because they don't value the value of the equity participation. Of course, it doesn't make sense to give equity to somebody who doesn't value it, and therefore it does make sense to participate people who don't value it. So you end up paying salaries or bonus, whatever. But so I wonder maybe there is a different perspective in how people think that will make this much harder to build entrepreneurship here because you don't have this in between layer that write checks to other entrepreneurs for businesses to make them big enough to then be investable. Because most startups fail in the first year before they become investable.
Do you have equity at Lieferheld?
So I have equity in Lieferheld, and we have some employees at Lieferheld that, of course, have equity in the company. But again,
Simon, do you have equity at Monoqi?
That's a weird question, isn't it?
Why?
As the founder.
Yeah, you can just say I don't answer it or something like that.
Well, yes, I do have equity.
Okay. Do you have equity at HelloFresh?
Yes, surprisingly.
Why, surprisingly?
No. Well, after all, I'm the founder of the business, so you should have equity, right?
Yeah, okay. Well, I'm just checking. I mean, I know it's a sensitive subject, but therefore I'm asking. I mean, this is also part of the show.
But
Talking about these
why
things.
is that a sensitive? Why is that a sensitive?
Well, because there's always a discussion, of course. You know, we have a guy here from Rocket Internet, and the discussion is always, they're not giving people equity, but they gave people equity. So therefore, I'm just doing a short round because you say it's also a structural argument for a scene to prosper or not to prosper.
Right. So I think obviously wrong. Rocket Internet does give equity to their startups.
Yeah, that was what I said.
The question is how much is being spread through an organization, and why is that not the case? And is it because people don't want to give it? Because often Rocket Internet is being put in the spot that all these are evil guys that don't want to give equity. I'm just saying, if somebody values cash more than equity, I wouldn't give them equity. It doesn't make any sense. So maybe there is just a perspective things in their head why people don't have equity, because they don't value it in a way.
I think he's raising a good point, and the good point is particularly, obviously you do have equity when you're like one of the 1, 2, 3 founders or on the C level, but whereas in US startups you usually have a much broader management participation program as in Germany. In Germany it usually is the sort of C-level employees only, whereas in the US you have right down to the last engineer, you have sort of participation rights where obviously if some startup cashes out, they all make a bit of money. But in Germany, I personally think that most people don't even think or don't even value the sort of equity stake accordingly, which is exactly what Fabian says. So I definitely second his opinion there.
And do you also execute differently because of that incentives that are seen differently by Germans than by non-Germans?
not really sure what your question is pointing at.
I mean, how many people at HelloFresh get equity in order to get the results that you want?
As I said, I don't think it's very widespread in Germany to distribute equity along the entire organization. I don't think it's an incentive problem, but I don't think. Well, it's more like with equity participation, you think that people would go like the sort of extra mile. And without equity participation, they still do a very good job, and but they see it more as a job, and they don't have that sort of feeling of ownership. I think that's what an equity stake induces, and I don't think actually that it does make such a big difference, because I don't think that German startups are less successful than their US counterparts. I don't think that Germany has a huge problem in attracting really good talent to the startups. I just think that the whole mind frame of the people and of the employees is different. German employees, at least in my understanding, don't really expect to be to have a salary component of equity, but rather expect to be paid in cash.
Yeah, I think that also a lot of people are really interested in how do you keep your employees motivated, like in a very general way. How do you make them go this extra mile? Not talking about equity, but in general, as a CEO, how are you doing that?
Well, I think definitely it helps when you work on a great product. A product that you can identify with, and a product that sort of is something that the normal employee can identify with. Nothing like, at least in my case, I don't have a huge technical background, so for me to work in a company that does a B2B software, for example, would probably be nothing that I can personally identify with.
Yeah, but you eat, so.
I do eat, indeed, sometimes. I think that's one point, that you have a product that people can identify with. Then obviously in creating a good working environment, a good atmosphere, and also in just sort of making people realize that they're part of a big growth story. That's something that is extremely motivating, and at sort of setting high targets. But then if you achieve the targets, then obviously that's sort of a big relief. And if you make people feel part of the organization, then that's definitely an element of motivation.
Simon, how I mean, Monoqi is not live yet. I mean, now you don't have to keep them motivated. But what is your general strategy to keep, the people in your company really dedicated and going the extra mile?
Well, the product, as my colleague here said, is definitely very important. It should be a product that people are fascinated about, the product that people love. And I think that's also a decision that you should take very early on to get people in the company that very much identify with the product itself. That's the basis, and that's also from there the working environment creates basically itself also. What's then even more important is to have a really strong vision, and to communicate this vision, and to bring everybody on the same page to basically have the goal to achieve this vision, and to strive for that. I think that's in the end the most important thing.
Fabian, you have?
I mean, it's not completely, it follows on what my previous two colleagues said. I think something that's motivating people a lot is success. Success on all levels. So being successful in what an employee does or what a company does, that motivates people. Having responsibility to do something. I always say that we cannot pay good salaries in a startup. So therefore, actually, we always say we pay specifically low salaries to attract the right talent, because we don't want these people that want a salary. We want these people that want responsibility, that want to do something, that really want to see, okay, when I go home in the evening, I know exactly what I actually did, what's different from when I came. And that is in itself success. And if that then leads to the overall company success, then people are motivated. So I think cash is a very short-term motivator, and especially when you don't have it as a startup. So you have to get people rallied around the vision, the success story, and party when you are successful.
Yes. Okay, thank you so much. So far, and we're going to listen to some more music of obviously the band that had a gig at Klaus Wowerite's house, the mayor of Berlin. I didn't know that. It makes it even more cool and more attractive that this band is now here. $2 Bash.
It was in the big house, the big red one.
The,
The big red house.
in the big red house. Oh, okay, the Rote Raadhuis. Yeah, my German is not that bad. I mean, I can understand this joke. Where was it?
The big red house.
It was really there. Okay,
Yes.
it was not a joke. Okay, wow. And tell me some more about this party. It totally went out of hand.
Well, you know, he's been seen doing crazy things. I'm not going to tell
It
you
was the
anymore.
usual champagne from the stiletto kind.
We didn't have any.
It was quite restrained. It
Okay.
was nice.
There was the governor of California there. He was
Yeah,
getting
the
down.
one before Arnie, the one who was the governor of California.
Sorry, I don't know
No,
that
no,
by
it's not
heart.
his- yeah.
nobody remembers.
Gray Davis. Anyway,
Yeah,
he
nobody
was CG.
But they didn't want him in California. They kicked him out. Anyway, this is a song about terrible things, ghostly things. Don't take it too hard, huh? Goes down. These empty streets, I'm strolling around, trying to have my feet right there by every sound. Round every corner and every way, straight into my heart like a wooden stake. Oh, like a ship going down. It's time to swim around, should we drown? Oh, there's no one around. Turn out the lights, goes down. Well, I opened the door and to my surprise, you're lying there naked with lust in your eyes. I curse you and your seductive smile. You poisoned my drink and we slept for a while. Up the stairs to the top of the tower, the clock strikes 12 as the bewitching hour. Looking down at all I see, 1,000 ghosts coming after me. Oh, like a ship going down. It's time to swim around, should we drown? Oh, and there's no one around. Turn out the lights and this goes down. Turn out the lights and this goes down. Turn out the lights and this.
Thank you so much to all of us for this wonderful performance and singing with a lot of inspiration and passion. I can totally see that. Thank you so much for that. Guys, as experienced CEOs, what are the main problems that occur in your daily job?
So for me, it's
This is Fabian Ziegel, by the way.
yes. So the biggest problem is this communication thing when the company gets bigger. It's like very annoying because when we were 20 people, everybody knew what was going on, just implicitly you know that everybody knows. And I feel like now I spend 30% of my time just telling everybody again and again what are we actually doing and why are we doing the things we're doing. And I'm really bad at this and I don't like it so much, but it's something that I feel like that's the biggest problem. Make sure everybody still knows, we are 200 people right now, that people really know what we are doing. And so that's my biggest thing I'm struggling right now with, at least.
But actually you're doing something that you don't like then?
It's part of I love the job. I'm having a great fun.
Of course,
but
of course.
No, but
But your main thing that you have to do, you don't like.
I'm not good at because I just assume in the way people know, and I want to do stuff, and I want to move forward. I just want to stop and explain again, and then stop and explain again.
Mm-hmm.
But it has to be done. It's important because people have to know. It's just it's a part of the job that is just recently, the last couple of months, is what I'm struggling most with. If you ask me, what are the problems I'm facing? Those are my problems I'm facing right now. Make sure that people really know what are we doing and why we're doing the things. Nobody is feeling left behind or left out, because obviously it's frustrating when you do stuff and you don't know why are you doing it. So
And what tricks do you have to overcome this?
I don't have any tricks yet. So if anybody else has some tricks,
Maybe
please let me
Dominic
know.
of HelloFresh. Well, you don't have 200 employees yet, right?
Not yet.
Not
Soon.
yet. But what main problems do you have as a CEO?
I think we just entered this sort of phase where you don't know about each and every detail in the company anymore. So it's often hard to let go of things. So obviously at the beginning and for the whole startup phase, you're very operationally involved, and you know in each area what is going on exactly. You're involved in each task, and then it comes a time when you sort of scale up, when you have more and more employees, that you need to give out responsibility, sort of have trust in the people that they deliver, and not be involved in each and every decision, in each and every minor decision, but sort of let go things and delegate things. And that's something which is absolutely, or which is crucial, absolutely necessary, but sometimes hard to let things go and not do them yourself.
But why? Why is that hard to let things go?
I think like implicitly as an entrepreneur, you usually choose the job because you don't like to be in a job where somebody else tells you what to do exactly, and you sort of always have that feeling that I can do stuff very good and very well, and that there's a certain path that I want stuff to be done, and then at some point, obviously, you have to make the decision, okay, do I really want to be involved in each and every minor detail? Do I really have to do each task myself? Or might it not be better to delegate some of the stuff and concentrate on some other stuff and driving the overall business forward, but not being operationally involved in each and every minor detail?
But you've done such a thing already, right? You tried something like this out, letting something go.
Yeah, obviously.
And how did it feel? How was it
organization-
better than you expected,
is
or
already way too big and that I can be involved in every detail.
how many
So,
people do you have now at HelloFresh?
Well, in Germany we have
Talk into the microphone. Yeah.
in Germany we have about right now about 30, I'd say,
Mm-hmm.
and we're also active in a couple of other countries where we have some local offices, and we do have quite a few guys in those local offices too. Not as big as in Berlin, because we do some central functions for all the countries from Berlin, but quite a few guys.
Yeah.
Given that we're only online for about 2 months now.
Yeah. But still, although you let things go, still it's hard to not being able to control everything.
Apparently, I mean, after all, you feel responsible for the business. You have that sense of ownership for the business. So actually, you strive to be be the benchmark in each and every area, and you try to equip your people with the best tools and the best knowledge you have. But then you need to delegate the stuff and wait for the results to come in.
May I ask how many hours a week you work?
Depends, but usually almost every waking hour, I'd say.
Every waking hour. So
Most of all, yeah.
from 7 in the morning until 11 in the evening, something like that. 7 days a week.
Well, I mean, it doesn't always feel like work, right? If you work on a product that you like, and if you have people in the company that you like to collaborate with,
Yes.
then it's sort of a mixture between private and business life.
Yeah.
But I'd say like as an entrepreneur, and I guess that you guys are going to second that, the business is always on your mind. Even if you engage in other activities, you still think about it. You still think of it in a strategic way about the business. So it's nothing that a normal employee, you say, okay, 6 o'clock, I'm going home, and switch it off and not think about it. But I guess in almost every 3 minute or in every waking minute, you're going to think in some way about the business and how to improve things.
Yeah. Do you recognize this, Simon, Fabi?
Well, yes, I have to confirm this. Yeah.
So your
always-
work-life
always-
balance is shit.
No, it's not. No, it's not shit at all. I mean, this is, if you choose to be an entrepreneur, this is your work-life balance. I mean, this is your work, this is your life, this is the thing that you want to do as well. So it's for a period of time, and for this period of time, it's amazing.
Yeah, but it sounds very adventurous and also very, very cool to say all these things. But, are you as productive if you work all the time?
Always.
Yeah?
Yes.
Fabian, help me.
No, I mean, I agree. You always think about.
But I mean,
the office,
Adel
but
Dekker
for me-
from Gitsy. Let me. Adel Dekker from Gitsy just says in an interview, I'm just taking hours off because you cannot be productive all the time, and it's a very conscious choice. And he just says it out in the open.
So the question is, what is work, and is it, when you think about it, are you still working? So when you go running and you think about, are you still working, or are you running, but you still think about it? But for me, it's a little bit different too, as I've got a family, I've got 3 kids. I leave the office at 6 p.m. every day. So I have dinner with them, put them to bed. I bring them in the morning to the kita. So therefore, I actually have these hours where I do something completely different. And by
But
the way,
without kids,
I really enjoy coming to the office. It's so much quieter, more organized. So so therefore, you have to have that the discipline to separate these things. Otherwise, you get soaken up and eaten up by work. So I personally like to have to be forced to have certain time of the day.
and you
take out.
always keep focused. You're always focused with your goals and what you want to achieve.
No. Sometimes it's just too much, and then you're unfocused. Then you have to force yourself to.
How do you do that?
I love lists. I make lists, and
Lists,
I love one of my biggest satisfactions are actually ticking something off a list. It's the best thing, and I like that. So therefore, you make lists and you tick them off, and you give list items to other people, and you enjoy when they tick them off. And if you're like a weirdo from that perspective, you're good in building something, because building something is always like ticking things off.
But you don't have like this is your way of being focused. Just having lists and ticking off things, and that's it.
So having lists, and another thing, I mean, you said we were going to talk about execution. So
Yes.
So we haven't touched that so far, I think, yet.
Well, this is a big part of execution. How to stay focused.
Another thing is like I love to measure things. So you just measure, because everybody has opinions, and opinions are not so interesting because everybody has them. But it's more interesting actually to look at stuff. Sometimes people are scared to look at your customers, how they use your product, or to look at the data that tell you how ask people from the street to come in and use your product. You look at them. People sometimes are scared about looking at the obvious things, looking at the truth. Is your product working, or does it suck? And so I feel like I always, that's one thing that I try to do in our company. I try to make sure that I don't care about opinion, and if people just throw opinions around, I try to stop that. I say like, okay, let's assume, what do you want to look at, what do you want to test, and then how do you get the data to see, and then you see whether it's true or not, and then you move on to the next. And sometimes I feel like people like to spend a lot of time with their opinions about how they think things are, and that's not so interesting, I think, in the end.
So what was the main thing that you want to get across when we're talking about execution? What is really the thing that you want to share from your experience as an entrepreneur?
So I think when it comes to execution, personally, what I think works is to have a plan and figure out what is driving your plan, and then measure everything that you can, everything is possible, and then iterate the plan, and not be scared to tell people, look, my plan doesn't work. It's not what I thought was working. It's actually completely different, but this is how it's going to work. So we've been around for 18 months, and we are in business plan number version 30 right now. So, so we change the business plan quite often. But that's something. If, talk about execution. If you have a business where it's not about you have a science project or a research project and you don't know what's going to be, or you have a project where you don't know how to run it. If you have a business that's very clear what the business is, how it works, what the proposition is, which is a pure execution business, which our business is that way. I think most people here on the table, they're more execution businesses because we know how the business itself works. Then it's very much about what's the plan, how can I measure the plan, and how quick can I iterate and make people focused on what are the really important things to look at. So that's from pure execution basis. That only works if you already know what your business is. And most startups are not that way. Most startups don't have any clue what their business is, and that's the way it should be. But there's a certain breed of startups where it's really about building a better product for a known solution, for a known problem. To make
And which tools do you use to keep these measurements?
We use Google Docs and various collaboration tools, so nothing fancy. Not rocket science.
Okay. Is this also, Simon, when you talk about execution, about what the main thing is that you want to get across, what would you like to share on that specific topic, execution?
Well, I think was already very interesting what he said. I think what also came out of this is that flexibility, if you execute in a startup, is extremely important. So when a business plan changes 30 times, that's because it's better if it changes. So, but you also have to be flexible. It's very hard for many people. It's actually very hard to shift that many times and to change a plan, to go into another direction. But for that, you have to be open and you have to be fast to change and to adapt yourself. So that's one thing that is super important. The other important thing is. What I feel is prioritization. You have to be able to really prioritize and really know what's the most important step and the best step that you have to take, and take that step. And do not be hung up with too many not that important things to do.
Yeah. So also not do things sometimes.
Exactly. Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. Make choices.
And make the decision. You will never have enough information, so you have to make the decision at a certain point in time.
Yeah. So Dominic, innovation by execution is possible, you would say. What innovations can you actually make by executing well?
I think, most of the businesses that you see around obviously have huge potential to still grow and to venture in different areas. And if you, for example, talk about copycats, then obviously you try to keep up with somebody else who has been around for a while, for a bit, but then the sort of innovation starts. Where do you want to drive the business? Where do you want to go from a certain level? Where do you want to advance it, in which directions? So, for example, I don't know, if you look at one of the rocket companies like Groupon, for example, at the point that they were when they were acquired by Groupon with City Deal, they were like I think one deal a day or something, and right now they have 50 categories, and they have like a new marketplace and whatever. So it's about keeping up at the beginning, and then obviously innovating, opening up new channels, opening up new verticals, that kind of stuff, and innovation by execution, also making it better than the players that have been around so far. So. Nobody would jump on a ship where you have some player in the market who is absolute leading and who is unbeatable. If some copycats come in, or if others sort of try to imitate your business, then it's always because they see some upside potential in the market, and they see either a huge market or a player that doesn't execute as well as you potentially could do. And I think it's very fair to imitate an existing business, and it's just an idea itself it's not worth that much. I think execution is sort of what drives things forward.
I think you can get philosophical very fast on this subject. You know, what is copycatting, what is not. But to take this rocket example where everybody's talking about, like Pinspire and Pinterest, would you say still that's legitimate to do it like that, or when imitating?
Well, I mean, as far as I'm aware, not many people were users of Pinterest before, right? In Germany, at least. I mean, in the US, they were quite big. So you always have that element that by copycatting, you actually bring a product that is that has proved its value to people in its existing market, to new markets. So actually, end consumers benefit.
But I mean, there's no real innovation there when you look at because they look exactly the same.
Well, I guess so far, I mean, I'm not super deep into the Pinspire and Pinterest. Unfortunately, I don't think I'm the right target group. I'm not a power user of either Pinterest or Pinspire. But I think like Pinspire sort of brings the model to markets where Pinterest is not as strong at the moment, and I'm sure Pinterest is gonna benefit from other people bringing the model to new markets too.
Well, thank you so far on this subject. For the last part of the show, after the music, we're going to dive shortly into these actual discussions when it comes to reputations and images, and we'll do that very shortly because it's not about execution. And I invited you to talk here about execution, so I have to be fair on that topic. Are we enjoying us so far? Do you think it's a nice show, or I mean? Okay, that's very nice. So let's have some more music before we are going to close the show. So $2 Bash. The before last song. Okay. The one before last. Yes, it is. Yes.
This song is from our new album. It's called New Adventures, which has got a lovely glossy cover, which you can't see on the radio. But it's called Time for You.
Yeah, and since everybody here likes to use computers on a regular basis and make their livings with it, you're all very welcome to go check out the video for that song on YouTube. It's called Time for You, and we had a very talented friend doing the video. So if anybody's into video making and music video making, get in touch. Yeah. Okay, that was the commercial. 1, 2, 3, 4. Turn to stone. Time for foolish, time for brave. Time to lay down in your grave, and this time for you. Always time, time, time. You know that I'm not born yesterday. Sometimes I feel bad, and I'm mad with you. Mad at the sun. Sweet, sweet life floats on
So we'll do a quick 5 minutes copycat, and I know that a lot of people don't want to talk about it still, but okay, we're all copycats in one kind of way. I mean, we all copycat, but how innovative are we really? I mean, Simon Fabi, how innovative is the web shop that you're going to start?
Well, I think very innovative. It's basically what you're going to see when we start is the tip of the iceberg. There's a lot of stuff that comes from us that's gonna very much develop the whole product into a very individual thing. So this is, I would seriously not call this copycat, even because talking about this idea and thinking about doing something like this has started long before we even know a company called Fab. So there's something that evolved. We saw that's a good way to, well, that's the best way to realize the vision that we have. It's a model that works, that is very legitimate.
But do you accept it if people from the outside world see you as as a model that already exists?
Well, it's totally fine. It's on us to prove that this is not the case. And as I said, it's the tip of the iceberg. We're going to prove it. So totally fine. I'm happy to prove the others wrong. Yeah.
Okay. And you don't see it as an insult if I'm saying it like this? Okay, you could be regarded as a copycat.
No, I mean you can see however you like. It's no insult. No, of course not.
Okay. Oh, that's quite relaxed.
No, I mean, I'm totally fine with that. Yeah.
Okay, maybe the whole copycat thing is maybe drifting a bit away. I mean, for some people, the discussion was already over last year. They don't want to talk about it anymore. I'm still bringing it up because it, also in the media, it's still people are still talking about it.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Well,
do you think it's an interesting topic, or you?
Well, yes, it is an interesting topic. It's like a soap opera. You want to listen about it, you hear about it. It's fun to hear about it. In my case, I think we start from the team, and we're an extremely authentic team. Basically, 70-80% of our team is simply from this.
How many percent of your team?
70 or 80% is from design.
Oh, 70 or
art.
80. Okay.
From what do you understand? 700%?
No, I thought that you were saying 78, so I thought that maybe there was somebody cut in half,
0.36.
original or something like that.
No, they do have a background in design, art, architecture, those areas. So it's very authentic, it's very real, and that's also the way we are. So what's going to happen with Monoqi is what we are. It's gonna be what we think, how we want to communicate the products that we choose, and it's simply very authentic and very real. So this has nothing to do. I mean, Fab could be a copycat of One King's Lane, basically, just in another product category. So everybody in One King's Lane was basically a copycat of One Privé. So it's a series which just evolves. I mean, so I think it's very much about the character of the company, and we have a very strong character, and this will come out very clearly.
Yeah. So, and Fabian Siegel of Lieferheld, backed by Team Europe Ventures, by the way, as incubator. You said something about Delivery Hero, because what's going on there? Explain this first.
Yeah, so maybe before commenting on this copycat debate, which I think is a very German debate, it's Lieferheld was founded in 2010, and so we are basically doing online food ordering in Germany, pizza, pasta, sushi, not the food to cook yourself. We're very happy with the way it works, and we decided to start a second company called Delivery Hero.
Yes.
And basically focus on bringing this model that to other markets, Mexico, Australia, Russia, there's more markets coming. And we did that outside of Lieferheld to make sure that we don't defocus the first one, as the competition is fierce in Germany. It's a very interesting market. Therefore, everybody is putting a lot of attention on that. And now, actually, it was a time to bring these two companies together, so that as of Monday, these companies actually act as one company. Because
what does that mean in practice?
In practice, it means that you share things what you did separately before to not defocus from your core mission. Now you do it together, so you have synergies.
And the names?
So Lieferheld will stay Lieferheld in Germany.
Okay.
The company as such is called Delivery Hero, but in Mexico we're called Super Antojo. In Russia we're called Deliveroo, and in Australia we are by coincidence are called Delivery Hero. We have a company in Switzerland called Food Arena. And there is some other things to be announced next week, so we're continuing to grow. That I cannot unfortunately disclose yet. So we continue to grow this. Coming back to this copycat debate.
Yes.
Obviously, online food ordering existed before, and before online food ordering existed, food ordering existed. You pick up your phone, you call somebody up. So therefore, most businesses, they're built on something else, and I've rarely seen a truly innovative product that hasn't existed before. It's really rarely that happens. So therefore, there's the true innovation lies in taking something and bringing it one step further.
But what do you think of the Pinterest and Pinspire
I mean,
case?
from the first perspective, it really looks exactly the same, like even from the CSS. So that is a very bold, straightforward move to state what you're trying to achieve.
Yeah, and the argument is here, I mean, they weren't in the German market that much, so we're going to take the German market.
So, but the question is now, okay, so that's the starting point. But where's it going? Are they going in the same direction? Is Pinspire now copying Pinterest all the way along? I don't think they will be successful. I don't think that is what they're going to do.
So
they're basically going to take this in their own direction from there on. So therefore, I don't have a problem so much to say, okay, this is where it starts. But then the question is, where do you take it? And if you really want to compete and beat the competition, you cannot copy them continuously, because then you will always be one step behind. And we have sometimes in our markets, we feel there are certain players that copy us, and that's fine, because let them copy us. They always be one step behind what we are doing. You'll never win in the market. So therefore, I don't see that it's necessarily a big problem. Coming back to the rules, it's very German to figure out, I have to put an opinion on that. Is it morally correct what's happening there? In the US, it's about, does it work? Is it successful in the competition? If yes, it's good. This competition is good, the best product wins. In Germany, it's about, is it even allowed what these guys are doing? Should we do this? Is it morally correct? And this is very German in a way, and I don't think it's very interesting.
But, Dominic, how do you think, why do you think that Rocket is getting almost all the blame for this for this copying? There's so much bad talk going on about Rocket, that people are leaving the incubator, or well, not an exodus, but they're starting their own businesses. You had this interview with Mike Butcher and Oli Zumwer, of course, from Rocket Internet. I mean, how is it for you from the inside to see this, to listen to these debates, and working there in a Rocket company?
Well, I think first of all, it's always the one who is successful who takes the blame, and who is the one who is blamed for everything what's going on. Secondly, with regards to what has happened in Rocket, so from my personal experience, I didn't see that anything changed in the past month. I didn't feel any impact of loads and loads of guys leaving, not at all. I mean, we've started our business right in that very phase when the, as you called it, exodus was announced. It hasn't held us back in any way. We've started doing the HelloFresh business, or we started executing in November. We launched in shortly before Christmas, so right in the time when all that kind of stuff was announced. And I don't think there was at any time that this was a big issue, that this was holding us back. So I think quite the difference. It's sort of meant for Rocket, okay, let's accelerate and let's bring on even more good people. And that's what's currently happening.
Yeah, it's motivating you, what is happening around you?
I think it's neither demotivating nor motivating. I draw my motivation from other things than people leaving or people coming to Rocket. I want to build a successful company, and obviously I'm happy to get all the help, and I'm happy to draw on all the support resources that I can get. But it's nothing that is a source of motivation or demotivation. If anything talks bad or talks good about Rocket or other incubators or an environment, I personally.
I'm not saying that. I'm not saying that I don't believe you, but it's also, I mean, it's hard to believe. I mean, that is really the case.
What exactly?
Well, there's a lot of going on outside of the company, and you say, okay, it isn't influencing me at all. That is hard to believe for me.
In what way do you think it would influence?
Us? Well, maybe you think, well, maybe it's good sometimes for Rocket to have some be positive in the news.
I don't think that HelloFresh as a company would benefit so much if everybody is saying like, oh, look at this Rocket guys, they're so great. I want to be in the news with HelloFresh, and I guess like Fabian wants to be in the news with the Lieferhelden or Delivery Hero, and not with Team Europe and being a side project of Team Europe and an incubator, or being part of the incubator Team Europe. I think as CEOs of the different companies, we solely focus on what's happening with us. We draw on some support from the incubators, but it's not like we're personally thinking about the incubators all the time or in each and every working minute. No, that's the company.
Yeah, and you're used to that emails of Ollie writing about a blitzkrieg and let's go and get this market, and you think now, oh, that's just fun.
Very motivating.
Yeah, very motivating. Yeah. No, but I mean, shouldn't he change something about the way he's acting in public? Shouldn't he do something like a big interview explaining, maybe showing a bit more of him? He's such a he has achieved so much. Why not be a little bit more open to the outside world?
Well, I think he has been super successful with the way he deals with things. I don't think that his main focus is on getting.
No, that's pretty obvious. Yeah, but
great PR.
I mean, a little bit more.
Sort of pushing the companies that he does, and he's not interested in getting great PR and being portrayed as the one guy for the Berlin startup scene, but in getting things done and traveling around the globe and pushing different projects forward.
Yeah. So he wouldn't be interested coming to the radio show, you think?
Ask him.
You ask him for me. I don't have his mobile number. No, but I mean, it's very. I think it's very cool that you're here on the show, and I mean, it's not in. It's from my point of view. It's first time that I'm having somebody from Rocket Internet on the show, and I appreciate it very much. I think it's very cool. But of course, I have to ask these questions as well because I know that a lot of people are very curious about these things. So maybe tell me after the show if you're going to kick my ass later on outside.
Well, I do feel warmly welcome.
You do feel warmly welcome. Well, that is all because of Monoqi. I mean, they're welcoming us here in our office, being open.
Amazing pleasure.
Yes. We're coming to an end to this show, but Stefan Wolpers has some announcement to make, I believe, because you want to say something about the event that you're organizing. So go ahead, take the mic.
Okay, good evening, Dirk. Thanks a lot for having me again on the show. I'd like to pitch to you the Startup Camp Berlin. That's going to be in full swing in exactly 3 weeks from now. And we're not going to have 60 excellent speakers. We already have about 230 attendees, and we're shortly running out of tickets because we cannot squeeze more than 350 people into the location. But actually, I'd like to present to you something that's really interesting because we have yet another startup competition. And we're cooperating with BitCrowd. That's a Ruby on Rails agency here in Berlin that is doing a lot of agile stuff. And the winner of the next BitCrowd Camp Champ will getting a prototype for free. No equity, no loans, no nothing. And if you like to apply for this, maybe you just have a PowerPoint. Now is the time. We have about 2 weeks left. Okay, thank you for your attention.
And of course, Stefan Wolpers is the guy who talked about failure as one of the first persons in my show. So I owed him a great deal because it was actually the first time that a real German guy came to the show and said, hey, it's good to fail. People should fail. Entrepreneurs, no problem, just do this. And before it was all, because this show is also involving in something like being more open about this kind of topics. So therefore, Stefan, I wish you all the best of luck with this next project, and peace. People respond. Which web address do they have to go to when they're listening now? SEB12.com or the Startup Camp Berlin 12. Startup Camp Berlin 12. Google. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Some people might want to help you with the SEO on this, but I'm sure it's going to be fine. We actually have authority on that topic. Yeah. Okay. Okay. Sorry, I don't. Okay, this was not a nice joke of me. Okay, sorry. Okay, but I want to end this show in a very nice way. We're going to end this show with music. But first of all, I hope today in this hour of radio and at this event that you learned something about execution. But these entrepreneurs are going to stick around for a while. So if you have some more questions for them, just go to them and ask them, exchange cards, and meet them, because these are really cool guys, and I enjoyed this debate discussion very much. So Fabian Siegel of Lieverheld /Delivery Hero, Delivery Hero /Lieverheld. thank you so much for coming. And I think you're an authority. I think that you're a very good speaker. Thank you so much for coming again to the show.
Thanks for having me.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, Fabian Ziegel. And then, of course, we're going to wish Dominic Richter a lot of success with HelloFresh, and we're going to follow him, and I hope to see you again on the show and all your other Rocket Internet colleagues as well. So a round of applause for Dominic Richter, ladies and gentlemen.
Thanks for your hospitality.
And finally, the CEO, who is, is going to do it from Monday onwards, is going to lead his company to big success, ladies and gentlemen, Simon Fabich of Monoqi.
Thank you.
Yeah, and we're going to have a drink while listening to the last song of tonight of $2 Bash. Thank you so much also for coming, ladies and gentlemen. Applause for $2 Bash.
This is a song about losing all your money, and I hope it doesn't happen to anybody.
Yeah, that's right. This is a song to celebrate failure, so hopefully, hopefully it doesn't apply to anyone soon.
That was it?
Great.
Great job. Well, sauce the muscles, yeah?